9 years ago, I was waiting for an emergency call to save a stranger's life. I was waiting in an ambulance station in an Israeli town of 80,000. It was my 9th year volunteering as a paramedic in the Red Cross, the Israeli Red Cross. There was nothing I loved more. On that day, we were sitting and talking, having fun, having some laugh, talking about my future as a doctor. You see, I was about to go to medical school and fulfill my lifelong dream of becoming a doctor. I've always wanted to be a doctor. Ever since I could remember myself, I would picture myself standing there in a hospital ward, tired, weary-eyed, but happy. Happy I've been granted this amazing opportunity to save life, to help other people, and to give them hope. I can vaguely remember my junior volunteer, Manor. It was her first shift, her very first shift. She shouted at me, Dr. Roy, when I walked through the station. Everybody thought I would be a doctor. My other colleague had just came back from years of retirement as an active paramedic. For them, it was the first shift. For me, it was the last. Suddenly, a call came in, and as usual, like I did 100 times before, I was rushing to the ambulance, running lightly. All you have to do is run for 5 meters, climb 2 steps, and drive. But this time, something was different. I was trying to climb these steps, and suddenly my legs couldn't bear my body weight. I never felt such weakness before in my life. It's been 3 years I've been having these strange symptoms. Doctors, of course, told me, it's irritable bowel syndrome. It's all in your head. Everything is okay. But this time, it wasn't okay. I thought to myself, of course it's going to pass in a few minutes. It's probably just a twitched muscle, just some weakness, momentarily weakness. But it was completely different. I found myself being rushed to the hospital, this time on the other side, not as a paramedic, but as the patient. And that song I mentioned, I will never forget it, because it was a song that I knew and loved. It was my favorite band, Bon Jovi. And the song name, how ironic, was Bed of Roses. For me, it marked the beginning of 3 years of absolutely no bed of roses. I did have a lot of bed because I couldn't leave bed for almost 3 years. In one point, getting out of bed and going to the bathroom, for me, is like was participating in the Tour de France. It was so hard. I would just say, okay, I would not pee today. It is too hard to get out of bed, because every time I changed position, I would have fainted. Even in my bed, you know, when you switch side, it's not comfortable anymore. You switch side, I would have fainted. But yet, doctors told me, it's all in your head. You're reading too much. Don't use the internet. Don't search online. Those patients are always searching online. I found myself in a hospital for 1 week. Doctor was baffled. They were baffling around this question of, why is a 23-year-old about to go to medical school, just finished his army service, he's a paramedic, everything is okay, why can't he function anymore? But no one knew. And more than that, for me, I felt that no one listened. I was crying for help, shouting out my symptom to the air, shouting, help me, but no one listened. I can vaguely remember the faces of the dozens of doctors I met. I can clearly remember the back end of a screen, because today doctors usually not even taking their head above the screen to look at you. I do remember some eyebrows while the doctor is typing vigorously your symptoms, recording everything you say, but changing it to a medical language. When you're lying in bed for so long, you have dark days. First, you keep on believing help would come. One of those doctors will give me a diagnosis, a magic pill that will cure anything. I was thinking, maybe I need a girlfriend. Maybe a love will heal me. I didn't know what to do. My parents took me to this professor who was looking at them and told them, me and the staff had a meeting. We devoted some time for your son, like doctors shouldn't devote time to their patients. And we decided what should you do with him. I was 25 back then. You should buy him a mattress, a very comfortable one, so he can grow old with dignity. I'm 25 years old, I was supposed to be a doctor, grow old, lying in bed. And then, it wasn't enough for him, so he told them, but I have a solution for you. Why don't we get him a wheelchair? A wheelchair? That was it for me. So I embarked on a journey. I borrowed books from a medical student friend. I took some classes online in the Open University. And I went to medical school from my bed, not to get a doctor's degree, but to save my own life, my own skin. After 1 year of researching and studying, I came up with my own diagnosis. My newly discovered syndrome is called POTS. So it's not enough to have 3 years of lying in bed. This POTS is a funny name. It was so rare, it was featured later on in a House episode. But my syndrome didn't need Dr. House to diagnose it. All it needed is someone to listen for me for 10 minutes. My greatest fear while being sick was that I would cry for help and no one would come to my help. So the first thing I did after regaining the ability of walking again was to develop an app, or APP as you call it in China, that will prevent this. My app, Help, enables anyone to save a life and anyone to receive help in a push of a button. If you ask what happened to medical school, eventually I decided not to go back to medical school. Seeing the system from the wrong side of things was too much for me, so I've decided to become a teacher. Because I believe teachers can save lives too. Educating for health, listening, empowering people, young people, can also save lives. For me, it took almost 3 years to get help. With my app, people can get medical help in under 3 minutes. We are now the voice of the deaf community in Israel, and we are launching our app in China for non-profit purposes next week in order to save lives, to prevent illness, and to educate for health. And as for me, I'm still standing. Thank you.